The next point, which is very critical, and I'm sure this is going to generate a lot of discussion, and that was part of the briefings that we used to offer the administration, and that is Muslims' disagreements with the United States were not and have not been driven by values of good governance. They have been driven by specific policies. And this is very critical, because if these differences are driven by values, then there's nothing to talk about. But when we asked in public opinion polls, we asked questions about whether the interviewees supported open government, transparent government, freedom of elections, decision-making on the individual level. We got vast majorities answering in the affirmative. Even though people wanted to have religion play an important role in their life, but that was their personal life. So vast majorities supported those values. These are, in the aggregate, values that we consider values of good governance. So if that's true, then why do they disagree with the United States? Then public opinion polls then ask them, if it's policies, what are these policies? So they highlighted the Arab-Israeli issue, they highlighted the invasion of Iraq, they highlighted Guantanamo, they highlighted Abu Ghraib, they highlighted the invasion of Afghanistan after the fall of the Taliban, they highlighted the bellicose rhetoric against Iran and Syria. So in the aggregate, they highlighted the perceived anti-Islamic policies by the United States. So it's a question of policies, and if it is a question of policies, then this administration believes we can talk. And this is really the heart of the matter. And the final point about engagement, unlike the previous years, that if you want to engage, you have to engage with credible indigenous groups, not the traditional groups. Please forgive me that many in the United States used to engage with, and I used to refer to them, please forgive me, Western-educated, English-speaking, Scotch-drinking Muslims. I said the fact is that most Muslims today are barely high school educated. Some still drink single malt, but that's a different story. And we need to engage indigenous organizations at the local level, not necessarily Nadi al-Kharrijin, the graduates club, but villages in Central Asia, for example, in the Fergana Valley. You have women's organizations, grade school teachers organizations, high school teachers organizations. You need to engage those people. And part of these indigenous organizations is Islamic political parties. Now, we need to engage Islamic political parties. The United States in the previous administration truly did not want to do that. Why? Because most Islamic political parties are grounded in Sharia and Islamic law, and they did not want to do that. So how do we know whether that commitment to Sharia is going to trump their commitment to political reform, or whether their political reform is going to trump their commitment to Sharia? We argued, and probably Dr. Tariq knows that Islamic political parties' behavior in legislatures should be the metric by which we measure their commitment to political reform. That should be the metric and the ultimate metric. And in fact, when we analyze the behavior of Islamic parties in different legislatures, from Lebanon to Palestine to Morocco to Malaysia to Indonesia to Nigeria to Kenya, we discovered that their behavior has not been different from the behavior of other political parties. They bargained over legislation. They focused on roads and recreation and parking and bread and butter issues and building permits. So they did not necessarily, and not one of those parties as a party, not one of those parties, demanded the institution of Sharia or Islamic law in the national legislature after they were elected. So if that's true, then that should be the metric by which we measure their behavior. Now, for the United States, two parties in particular pose a challenge, and that's Hamas and Hezbollah, because unfortunately they are listed on the terrorism list of the United States. And that particularly is a challenge. However, it is a surmountable challenge because, like Iran, there are areas that are common ground, that there are areas we can talk to Hamas about or Hezbollah about that focus on service to that community, from economics to all kinds of health issues, regardless of whether they are on that terrorism list. There are actions, of course, that are terrorist, but that's a different story. So with this in mind, then, we offered a platform for engagement. This has generated, as I said, a lot of discussion in the United States. It generated that discussion before this administration, but this administration, I'm very happy to say, has been receptive to these ideas. And frankly, if we were under the previous administration, I don't know that I would be sitting here to discuss this issue. So the 10-point blueprint, it is in the book. I do not want to go over it. And this is basically to kind of entice you to buy the book. And I will stop with that. Thank you.